Good afternoon. This is my final video project for the class in the semester. It's hard to believe I'm here, but here we go. I'm going to outline the process of self-mentoring in hopes of, or kind of to achieve the goal of this project, which is to create, on the Bloom's taxonomy level, to teach someone else self-mentoring. And I really hope I can actually do this in the workplace. I think it would benefit a lot of members of my team. So the first level, there's 4 levels of self-mentoring, which I appreciate the idea of a level and not a stage. Each level has multiple stages. This is how I've kind of interpreted the process and taught myself the process. And level 1 is about self-awareness. You want to answer the question, who am I? If your goals are related to a workplace, which mine was, you're thinking about, who am I in the workplace? What do I expect of myself? Because by the end of this level, you are setting an expectation for yourself. In order to figure out who you are, you have to be able to be honest with yourself. Something I've become pretty good at because I'm setting goals, but it's a little difficult. And even though self-mentoring is a fairly independent process, it's really helpful to have a trusted colleague who you can receive critical feedback from and not be upset or insulted, and take it for what it is. The part of this process is becoming more self-aware. You have to know who you are, where you excel, where your weaknesses are. I think about this in terms it really helped me to think about this whole process in terms of like people setting goals for dieting. Who am I? I'm a person who likes to snack at night and I have trouble on the weekends. You've got to be able to admit the hard things for yourself to yourself and not just the positive. So by the end of level 1, you should be more self-aware and you should have an expectation set for yourself. Going into level 2, it's about self-development. How are you going to utilize your strengths and build up your weaknesses so they can become strengths? For example, in my project, my plan, expectation was I'd like to find a way to lead in my office. I had to figure out in this stage how I was going to do that. You have to come up with a plan. You got to figure out when you're going to implement it, the timing of it, how you're going to measure and collect data during your plan, whether it's charts, note taking, graphs, feedback from others, and then you have to do. You have to grow and develop. So if you think about that diet example I gave, your goal is to lose 20 pounds. You have to decide how you're going to do it, your expectation, your plan. You've got to figure out the timing. When are you going to engage in these steps? Is it grocery shopping? Is it setting aside 2 hours a day for meal planning and exercise? How are you going to measure this? Are you going to measure with measuring tape and inches, or are you going to measure on the scale or by photographs? And then you have to put your plan into action so you can collect data. And as you're doing this, if you've created an appropriate plan, you're growing and you're developing and you're strengthening some of your weaknesses. Hopefully you're starting to not snack at night or snack on the weekends when you're bored, if we're using that example. So you're strengthening an area of weakness. Level 3 is self-reflection. This is really important, and I feel like this almost goes on in every level. You've got to evaluate the data you have. At the end of your diet, did you achieve your goal? What did you eat every day when you journaled? What worked well and what didn't? And where do I go next? You have to evaluate where to go next. If you achieved every goal and you think you did amazing, you move forward. However, you're probably going to have to go back to another level, maybe back to level 2. I've got to re-implement this because not snacking at night didn't work for me because I didn't plan accordingly. Something like that. And your data will tell you that. So you've got to evaluate the data. Again, critically reflect on yourself and what worked and what didn't. And this is where pulling in an expert or pulling in, again, a colleague, if you really were using this in the workplace. So hopefully you won't use my silly diet example, but you can pull in a colleague or an expert to help you. Maybe so the next time you retrace your steps, you're doing a little better. You got to figure out where you go next. And level 4 of self-mentoring is self-monitoring. So once you've achieved your goal and you've hit that mark, you've got to look back on what worked well for you. Think about some next steps if you want to continue that goal. Sometimes you have to cycle back and close that feedback loop. What is most critical is to maintain. Think about the diet again. You achieve that 20-pound weight loss, and then you don't maintain it because you don't continue to reflect and cycle back. You don't monitor yourself and monitor your actions. So that's really, really important to self-mentoring, is constantly being aware of yourself and your actions.